You kind of caught me off guard here. Okay. Now, thank you, Lord. Help me. Let me put it very simple. It takes a lot of money to do what we do. Oh, yeah. Well, for example, that's really none of your business. But, hey, you listening to me? Let me give you another example. And I prayed about it, and I thought, back when, and I might add another thing, too. It's a misunderstanding. I'm talking about the Bible. God, I get excited talking about it because I love it. I had to learn this, the demons. Abraham was very, very wealthy. I learned it from him, from the Bible.
There's a foundation in the Bible.
Wait a minute now. The blessing of Abraham. Abraham was extremely wealthy, and he had a covenant with God. I'm talking about the Bible. Oh, God, I love this. And I started out standing my grandfathers. I love the people. Those are the demons. And I understand that, and I love them with all my heart. If you go into the old covenant, and it's full of meanness, it's just full of hell on earth. He made that airplane so cheap for me, I couldn't help but buy it. I love your eyes. Face to face, personally. Just the same as Jesus is very real devil. Rulers of the darkness of this world. God bless, Father bless. But it's a biblical thing, it's a spiritual thing. It doesn't have anything to do with people. And it's full of miracles, and signs, and wonders. It's full of unseen things. Jesus, people, I love people. Dragging some woman down an aisle, it made me so mad I wanted to punch the guy out myself. We wrestle not with people. And I have a lot of natural gas.
Islam is a disgusting, evil, violent, stupid religion for imbeciles. And you know what? If somebody is under the sound of my voice right now, hearing this on the internet, and you're a Muslim, you know what? Then instead of getting mad that I'm calling you stupid, pick up this book and read it and see how stupid it is. And then pick up this book and let the tears roll down your face and say, this is the Word of God. It's got power. And then pick up this book, Islam, there's no comparison. And then pick up this book, following God. And then pick up this book, this is the Word of God. And then pick up this book. You know what's hateful? The gospel.
Rent district, here he goes, crossing himself. Oh! He's done.
Gang, welcome back, man. How much do y'all miss the old school vibes, man? The clips and all the fun stuff, man. So look, we're in the middle of a move. The studio's crazy right now. Everything's everywhere. So we just decided to keep things simple, do a little old school stream. We're streaming through Restream to keep things simple, and yeah, it should be fun, gang. So look, let's go ahead and jump into it. First, for our communion song, we will go ahead and do that. Thank you for being a friend. Then we're gonna go ahead and get into it. So cheers, gang. I hope everybody out there is having a good night. It's time to have some communion, get into the mode, greet your neighbors, catch a vibe. Y'all already know the routine.
Thank you for being a friend. Traveling down the road.
Yeah, Throwback Tuesday.
Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant. I'm not ashamed to say, I hope it always will stay this way. My hat is off. Won't you stand up and
All right,
take
y'all.
a bow?
Cheers.
And if we threw a party and invited everyone you knew, you would see the biggest gift would be from me, and the crowd attached would say, thank you for being a
I don't know how YouTube Punk gets away with gambling all his pocket change away. But if that shit worked at a casino, be rich as shit.
Buy you a Cadillac, anything you need, any time of the day or night.
Yeah, now you only have like 12 gazillion pocket
I'm not
change.
ashamed to say, I hope it always
Appreciate you,
stays
Ken.
way. My hat is off, won't you stand up and take a bow?
What's up, AR?
When we both get older, with the walking sticks and hair gray.
Alright, I got Captain Dash. What the best? Carrie Ann is here. YouTube Fun. Caterpillar. AR's in the house. Good to see everybody.
Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being a friend. I wanna tell you about a friend. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being a friend. And when we die and float away into the stars, the Milky Way.
You hear me call as we ascend. I'll say your name, then once again, thank you for being a. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being a friend. Listen to me. I wanna thank you for being. Thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you for being a friend.
Hey, Lena. Yeah, it's probably so good.
Thank you right now. Thank you right now. Friend, I wanna tell you my
Alrighty, gang. So man, this is actually, it's crazy because I'm not really planning. I wasn't really planning on doing any streams because the move is going so crazy right now. But we were listening to Tom Hartman earlier in the office, and I just got kind of inspired and moved some things around. So this may very well be our last stream from our current location, which is crazy. We have so many memories here now. I've been here since really since the beginning of COVID. Like I've been here since literally April. Like I moved in here the first week of April 2020. And so it's just been me and Sam since that day, for the most part. We've had very few visitors, right, Sam? We don't have visitors. I ain't even gonna lie to you. I think we may have had 3 or 4 visitors in the last 4 years or 3 years, whatever it's been. But yeah, it's mostly been straight isolation, pandemic mode for me. I still have everything delivered. I still don't really deal with people. Matter of fact, that was one of the big stresses of moving, is this has just been way more contact with people than I've had like since the pandemic started, and yeah, that's been stressful. But yeah, I finished my PhD here, writing my dissertation in isolation, didn't graduate. So, defended my dissertation. I defended my dissertation in this chair, in this room. And, yeah. And then, meeting this community and finding the atheist community, and then starting my podcast, basically, because before then I was only just doing like my gaming and drumming streams in previous places. So yeah, sort of the podcast started here. It was weird. I was like sitting here, and I don't know. I just wanted to wax. I had an itch to talk about a lot of things. Remember one of the early ones I did too was like I did a couple podcasts, and then I did like a human evolution lecture or some shit. That's way back. I gotta find that. But yeah, this is kind of where it all got started. So interesting. All right. So look. Oh, you said you didn't see the Tom Hartman show in the office today? Oh, that's probably because your monkey ass wasn't in Gather. I keep telling you, stop being a YouTube loser. Click the link down in the description. Hang out with us. Link up with us and Gather. Yeah, this is, Tom Hartman is somebody that UC Love plays from time to time in the office, and he did a really good show today, and it inspired me. So before we do that, though, I also got an email today, y'all, and this email is from the church I used to work at. It's not really from the church I used to work at. It's from the couple, in particular, like the youth pastor I worked for. So it's like from the guy I used to work for when I worked at a church. He no longer works at that church. Like, that church was in New Jersey. I think he's in like Atlanta now. He left to go to seminary, and that's when the band broke up, right? Like, he left to go to seminary. I went back to Penn State. Everybody kind of just scattered to the four winds, and so that was I wouldn't say the end of that ministry, but definitely the end of that chapter in that ministry. It was like we were all there. Yeah, it was great. But anyway, they sent out like I guess it's like a newsletter I'm signed up for or something. But it triggered me, and I want to share it with y'all because I'm sure y'all will see what the problem is. But yeah, all right, let's jump into this. All right, so actually, let's get our camera right. Let's do this. I'm actually gonna remove the chat overlay just for now, so it's easier to read. Yeah. All right, so he says, my grandfather, I actually know his grandfather, 95 years old, has always been a mystic on a mission to love the hell out of humanity and see the shalom, holistic peace of the kingdom of God be put on display everywhere he went and in everything he did. Most of what I saw him doing my entire life has been loving people with so much patience and unconditional love, while always sharing his life and resources without abandon. And he always loved to share the truth he's ever discovering in the person of Jesus. He always shared with people about Jesus and always asked good questions to get people thinking. I was getting a new cell phone the other day and found myself using one of his riddles. I've heard him use 1,000 times, usually at a restaurant with his waiter or waitress. I'm like, yeah, it's not at all creepy. It led to a 30-minute discussion with my sales rep and the seeds of a friendship and an exchange of numbers and a desire to get together to talk more. His riddle always went something like this. If you were stuck in a cave and came to a fork in the cavern with two different passages, both claiming to lead you to freedom, one says Christ, the other says truth, which do you choose? He then tells them to think about it and give him their best answer and why. Most people, especially here in the U.S., say Christ and then proceed to tell him they are religious and believe Christ is the way out. My grandfather then will ask, how do you know that you're following the true Christ? There are many counterfeit Christs promising to save you and bring you the freedom you long for. What if following the next version of Christ, who is promising escape, isn't the answer, but gets you even more lost in the cave and more confused. You see, if you seek true truth, you will find the true Christ, and he is the way, the truth, and the life. The all caps truth will always set you free, so seek truth. All right. I find this incredibly frustrating because it's just gaslighting. And I really wish Christians would find a way to have their faith, have their religion without demanding that the rest of us divorce ourselves from reality. And like it's one of those things where whatever part of me is in live and let live mode, where I'm not gonna go at a particular person for their faith, and I'm just gonna go on about my business and let them go on about theirs. Which y'all know me, depending on the day, that might not be a very big part of me to begin with. But this is the sort of shit where I draw the line. Like, I'm not gonna let y'all sit up here and just assert you have the truth and assert you can seek the truth, and then you'll definitely find Jesus. Like, I find that infuriating as a former Christian. It is such a dishonest way to approach the whole conversation, and this is the culty thing, right? This is what gets Christians so culty. They just are so comfortable asserting and assuming that they have the truth. There's no way that their shit's false. And if you just seek the true God and the true Christ, you know, then you'll always find the truth, and that'll definitely set you free. And I just, this is when I'm just like, no, y'all are liars. Like, this is how you lie. You pretending to know something you don't know. If you can't show it, you don't know it. And then it's like, well, what about all these other truths then, right? Like, this is where they're gonna get themselves fucked up, because you know me as a scientist, I'm gonna go, all right, well then let's talk about how evolution is true, and let's talk about how the gender sexual spectrum is a part of human nature. Let's sit down and talk about truth. Oh, you want to talk about the truth? Yeah, I'm glad you showed up to talk about the truth. Have a seat. Have a seat and a cold drink of water. You're gonna need it. It's just infuriating. It's just infuriating. And then all right, let's see what else we got in here. I don't know how much more else I can read. It was such a clever way to get people to think, to help people escape their often cultural religious presuppositions and plant seeds of truth-seeking in them, that he was confident would lead them to into the right questions that would expose the false saviors in their lives and point them to the one who loved them most and could bring the truest truth into their existence that was so easily confused by the noisy deceptions of all the pseudo-saviors this world tries to offer us. I love watching him do this time and time again, and he never seemed to come off arrogant or self-righteous. He was always funny and kind, non-assuming, self-deprecating, and quick to let people know he too was on the journey and kept seeking truth at every fork in the road, and it hadn't steered him wrong. I never saw anyone take offense or feel annoyed at him, even if they didn't agree or were busy and needed to move on. You could see they appreciated the thoughtful interaction from this old bald man with a crooked smile and gleam in his eyes. As he got older and older, I watched him become less and less concerned about what people thought about him, and more concerned about them possibly meeting the living Jesus, the ever-present truth, who kept showing up in the cave with him, present through it all and near to him, even when he too chooses the wrong path. All right, I'm gonna stop reading there. But look, this type of thing, man, like, and I fell for this, right? And this, I guess maybe that's why it bothers me too, right? Because there is that false sense of security, and then that literal narrative, that double talk, right? Where oh, you're supposed to seek the truth, you're supposed to be questioning, you're supposed to be challenged, you're supposed to humbly be seeking, you know, the truth wherever it may lead. But it's really just an exercise in thought stopping, getting you to depend on Jesus, assume he's always the truth, assume you're always in the truth as long as you're in Christ, and then actually never ask the deep questions and never actually seek the truth and never challenge the path you're on. So it's just really like eye-opening to hear this stuff later. It's also kind of like traveling in time, because you realize like he sounds exactly the way he sounded, you know, all those years ago. And you know, God damn long time ago at this point. And I've just grown and changed and moved on and grown the fuck up. And you know, we were on very different paths even back then. That's always why my deconversion story is so hard to reconstruct, because I was on a total different wavelength even then as a Christian who worked at a church and a youth ministry. Like I didn't take the Bible literally. I was super science forward. I was super progressive and an ally and shit like I am now. I thought God completely worked through nature, so I really like didn't believe in the supernatural. I was just in a weird, odd kind of hippity dippity place trying to work it out. But yeah, we've just continued to grow and live and go in very different directions. But this like really got my blood boiling. It really kind of brought me back to the beginning. It like reminded me of, you know, why I think counter-apologetics is important and why I do this stuff, because I really am frustrated with my own former faith and the way it misled me, and then the way Christianity continues to mislead people. What's up, Mark? It's good to see people here. All right, so y'all, look, we're gonna jump into, what's up, Liz? We're gonna jump into the main event of the evening, which is gonna be from Tom Hartman, and it's in both of these discussions. They're like back to back. So the first thing is he's gonna be talking about pervasiveness. Listen to me. Polarization. You're gonna be talking about polarization, and then I'm gonna touch on why I think polarization is not the problem people think it is, and then we're gonna have this discussion about fascism. All right, let's get into it.
Book today in the Tom Hartman Book Club is Ezra Klein's new book, Why We're Polarized. This is from the introduction, and it's a couple pages into it. I'm starting out here. I have found that American politics is best understood by braiding two forms of knowledge that are often left separate: the direct on-the-ground insights shared by politicians, activists, government officials, and other subjects of my reporting, and the more systemic analyses conducted by political scientists, sociologists, historians, and others with the time, methods, and expertise to study American politics at scale. On their own, political actors often ignore the incentives shaping their decisions, and academic researchers miss the human motivations that drive political decision-making. Together, however, they shine bright light on how and why American politics works the way it does. There's much awry in American politics, and I won't in this book attempt to catalog all of it. But I've come to believe the master story, the one that drives almost all divides and most fundamentally shapes the behavior of participants, is the logic of polarization. That logic, put simply, is this: to appeal to a more polarized public, political institutions and political actors behave in more polarized ways. As political institutions and actors become more polarized, they further polarize the public. This sets off a feedback cycle. To appeal to a yet more polarized public, institutions must polarize further. When faced with yet more polarized institutions, the public polarizes further, and so on. Understand.
All right, gang. So this is interesting, and it immediately reminded me of what we call runaway sexual selection, right? The idea basically is let's say, you know, females are choosing amongst the males have a trait originally, maybe it's associated with some type of benefit, like, I don't know, maybe having a slightly longer tail feather allows you to fly or be more stable when you change directions or something. Eventually, females develop a preference for it. Now that the females have a preference for it, males continue to grow longer and longer tails. Now that males are growing longer and longer tails, more and more females have the preference, because after all, if you don't have the preference, then your offspring won't produce sexy sons. And so it just becomes what we call sexy sons runaway sexual selection, and it's believed to explain a lot of the extraordinary sexual selection traits that we see in nature. All right, so it kind of makes sense in terms of runaway processes and feedback loops. And I don't really have a problem with the analysis on that level. The thing that I want us to think about is polarization really the problem when the difference is between right and wrong? The thing what I don't like about, and from what I've heard of Hartman, he's really pretty astute about most things. So, you know, I don't fault him for having this conversation or discussion in the way that he had it. But a lot of times, and that's kind of a good thing too, right? You kind of want to find somebody who hopefully is talking about things responsibly, and then we can shed a little bit of light on how the conversation is had elsewhere. A lot of times you hear people just throw that out. We're so polarized. We're just so scattered. There's such a big schism. We're so divided, you know, and we just can't agree on anything. And like, it has a problem of the inherent both sides-ism that is going on when the conversation is framed that way. Like, if I said that my stance is super, like, you do not engage or negotiate with fucking Nazis, but, you know, I could take it all the way to, you see a Nazi, you kick him in the nuts, you punch him in the face and whatever, like, I'm fine. And then other people are gonna be like, no, you're too polarized, you're too divided. Actually, you know, you need to make sure that you're hearing out their philosophy, and what if they're just misguided? You know, no, I'm not stupid. There's a difference between right and wrong. There are those of us that believe you take two objects, you take another two objects, you count all the objects, you're always gonna get four fucking objects. If scary ass motherfuckers come around and start talking about we're gonna get 6 and 19 or tomato, you tell them to say their scary asses all the way fuck over there at the kids' table while the grown folks make goddamn decisions. And so we are polarized. But when I actually perform the analysis, when I think about what's really going on, I think we're not polarized enough. We're not polarized enough, right? Like, an example, like, I saw a spot today, I was thinking about, like, I don't know where I was gonna move, but I saw a spot today, and let's just say a spot slipped on the list a little bit because I noticed that the neighbor, like, there was a truck in front of the neighbors that had like a fucking MAGA, like, Trump bumper sticker. And I was like, ooh, I hope that's a service person, because I damn sure don't want to live next to a fucking MAGA hat, because I don't know what the fuck a MAGA hat might try to pull on my black ass with the shit that's going on in the world right now. But it's not really like that, right? It's not really like that. Like, if I like that place, I'm not gonna fucking not rent it because I saw a fucking Trump bumper sticker. I might make a couple of jokes about it, right? But as long as that motherfucker don't lose his mind or do some crazy shit. Like, he probably just gonna be in there watching Fox News, and I'm gonna be in here talking shit about Fox News. Like, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like we are really having a civil war. It's not like we really won't live together. It's not like we really won't work together, right? And that, to me, has the effect. I'm not saying it's wrong. It just is what it is, right? We gonna go to work, right? I'm gonna go to work. I work at the University of Minnesota. Sorry, I couldn't even say that right. Look. Fuck if the university is watching, I'm drinking, I'm having fun, I'm on my time, I'm moving. Go fuck yourself. Go Gophers. As long as the check clears, we're good. But no, seriously, like, I work at the University of Minnesota in the Department of Ecology, Evolution, and Behavior, right? That's the gig. That's the job I got. Like, I can't go through the fucking faculty roster and be like, all right, if y'all got too many bigots and fuckheads, like, I'm out. Like, I'm not gonna work here. I'm gonna go somewhere where there's only libtards like me, right? Instead, I'm like, my supervisor's cool. My supervisor's the head of the department, so that checks that off. The head of my program's pretty cool. The head of my program's also the interim dean of the college, so that checks that right off. Right? I'm like, literally, like, my direct line of supervision is good to go. We're good to go. Like, I can't even tell you what the fuck is going on. Now, again, that's how it should be, right? I'm not suggesting that we get to this point where we literally, can't work together and can't shop at the same grocery stores and all of that shit. But what I'm saying is, when they say those conversations, they're ignoring that. Like, how polarized are we really? Like, what, in our free time we're polarized on social media? We're polarized in terms of, our friends and all that. Like, it's still, for the most part, we still get along like we've gotten along. And while everybody's complaining about the polarization and the division, we're not talking about the normalization, which is like, if I rent this place, I might have a fucking fascist, faggot, trying to put words together. I was trying to say fascist and bigot, and I said faggot, because I don't know. I might have a fascist bigot who hates faggots next to me, right? And like, that's just life. Hey, fuck, it's a competitive fucking real estate market, so if there's an insurrectionist supporter next door, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? So I just think that, like, it bothers me that people are trying to paper over very real substantive differences that at the end of the day come down to right and fucking wrong, that come down to lives are on the line. When we talking about this LGBTQ shit, it is not a fucking game. They're trying to literally erase our trans fam, okay? While they're at it, with the same stroke of the pen, like, they're not even gonna lift that shit off the paper. With the same stroke of the pen, they're trying to eliminate and erase Black history and get rid of our voting rights, right? And don't act like if they can't figure out some good racialized medicine, like they won't do that shit too. They do, right? They do with opposing fucking Obamacare and, not giving us, they all there's racism in all of those shits. So, again, like, I don't know when people talk about this, like, when people talk about how divided we are, I really look at them like this. Like, what is that supposed to mean to me? What are we supposed to do about, like, I'm not compromising with these assholes. I'm not about to meet them in the middle between sanity and insanity. Like, y'all could forget that shit. So the other problem is, it feels like the right uses this as a talking point. Again, like, you got to be aware of the moment. And right now, we're in the moment of the politics of civility and the right wingers, you know, crying about cancel culture every single time somebody doesn't want to fuck with them. But then at the same time, they literally demand a boycott of every single business that sells gender neutral toys. Like what? Yeah, we're divided as fuck. We're divided as fuck. And I ain't gonna never be less divided with them weirdos. I ain't never gonna be less divided with them weirdos. Cause trust me, if I could isolate myself from them, I would isolate myself from them. When they talk about a fucking civil war, I am like, please do not threaten me with a good time. And y'all, I'm telling you, it's an empty threat. There will not be a civil war in America because a civil divorce will do just fine. We have nothing to fight over. There's no need for bombs. I know the right wing, y'all got all the guns, but guess what? Y'all really want to have a civil war? We don't need one. We can have a civil divorce. Y'all could take the South. Bye, Felicia. See you later. Bye, Felicia. See you later. Not a single life needs to be lost. We will just let y'all walk out the door. Stop acting like compromise with these fools is not anywhere in sight. It's not coming from either side. And I don't know what you want me to do, but I'm gonna let him say some more because y'all know I could talk about this shit forever.
Understanding that we exist in relationship with our political institutions, that they are changed by us and we are changed by them, is the key to this story. We don't just use politics for our own ends. Politics uses us for its own ends. There are many different types of polarization possible, and I'll discuss some of them later in the book. But the locus of polarization I'll discuss is on political identity. And that requires saying a few words about a term that should be very useful in American politics, but that has become almost useless: identity politics. A core argument of this book is that everyone engaged in American politics is engaged in identity politics. This is not an insult, and it's not controversial. We form and fold identities constantly, naturally. Identity is present in politics in the way gravity, evolution, or cognition is present in politics. That is to say, it is omnipresent in politics because it is omnipresent in us. There is no way to read the literature on how humans form and protect their personal and group identities, literature I will survey in this book, and believe that any of us is immune. It runs so deep in our psyches, so activated so easily by even weak cues and distant threats, that it is impossible to speak seriously about how we engage with one another without discussing how our identities shape that engagement. Unfortunately, the term identity politics has been weaponized. It is most often used by speakers to describe politics as practiced by members of historically marginalized groups. If you're black and you're worried about police brutality, that's identity politics. If you're a woman and you're worried about the male-female pay gap, that's identity politics. But if you're a rural gun owner decrying universal background checks as tyranny, or a billionaire CEO complaining that high tax rates demonize success, or a Christian insisting on nativity scenes in public squares, well, that's just good old-fashioned politics.
And this reminds me of Jordan Fuckface Peterson, but it's basically the entire alt-right. Now think about this. Every single time, he's just right on. Every single time we bring our issues to bear, they cry identity politics, woke, cancel culture, all this fucked up ass bullshit, right? But when Jordan Peterson starts a controversy because he refuses to use the proper pronouns for one of his students, it's like, oh well, you've come under fire recently from some of your more controversial political opinions, right? Like we're sitting here like we're talking about what the fucking tax rate should be, or we're talking about fucking import tariffs and shit, when we're talking about this fucking university professor misgendering his students. But nobody's talking about it. That's not identity politics. It's never identity politics with them. But everything's about fucking identity. Literally, the cancel fucking Target. Oh my God, Pride Month is coming again. Can't get rid of the black girls' fucking poems out of the books. Burn the fucking books. Like everything they fucking do. Literally, they literally let us fucking die of COVID because that was the way to fucking own the libs. That was the way to own the libs, y'all. Literally, we should have pulled a fucking, like a double turn on them, y'all. We should have all pretended that we wanted COVID to run amok. We should have pretended we were against masks. We should have pretended we were against mandates. We should have been like, what the fuck is a vaccine? Nah. I said Charlene. I said my ex-girlfriend's name is Charlene. Vaccine. Who the fuck is vaccine? Nobody knows anybody named Vaccine. All right, that's how we should have acted. Them motherfuckers would have been like, lockdowns, everybody stays at home, close the fucking buildings, vaccine mandates, right? Because it didn't matter. It had nothing to do with health policy. It was just about owning lips. So we could have just fucking sheepishly went along. That's all they want us to do is fucking pretend we're gonna sheepishly go along with their bullshit. We're gonna okay, well, if you insist, right? And we literally could have saved 500,000 lives, y'all. We could have saved 500,000 lives by just pretending we didn't give a shit, because that's how deep the identity politics is with them. That's how deep the identity politics. Again, Wayne says, they always want to talk about us being sensitive and snowflakes and divisive and all of this shit. What? Are y'all not the give me liberty or give me death people? Sounds a bit emotional. It sounds a bit emotional, I'm not gonna lie.
With a quick sleight of hand, identity becomes something that only marginalized groups have. The term identity politics in this usage obscures rather than illuminates. It's used to diminish and discredit the concerns of weaker groups by making them look self-interested.
Exactly, man.
Special pleading in order to clear the agenda for the concerns of stronger groups, which are framed as more rational, proper topics for normal political debate. But in wielding identity as a blade, we have lost it as a lens, blinding ourselves in a bid for political advantage. We're left searching in vain for what we refuse to allow ourselves to see. All politics is influenced by identity. Those identities are most powerful when they are so pervasive as to be either invisible or uncontroversial. American is an identity. So too is Christian. When politicians, including the irreligious, end speeches with "God bless America," it's not because they're making an appeal to a higher power, but because they're making an appeal to our bedrock identities.
That is such an important point. And this is the problem too, right? Because there's so many of the media that you can see slowly, too slowly, pulling away from Christianity. Right? They're starting to realize that Christians are usually the bad guys in the room, right? But at the same time, they can't say it, right? And any other time we were dealing with this, like when we're dealing with QAnon, right? Like, think about how comfortable the mainstream media is shitting all over QAnon. Right, like we got Fox News or a couple of the right wing nut jobs might lick their balls a little bit, but nobody gives shit about fucking QAnon, right? So they'll do like a fucking 90-minute special all about QAnon, bring on all the experts, right, and debunk QAnon, talk about what type of weirdos even fall for this QAnon nonsense, right? But there is absolutely nothing about QAnon that is any less crazy than Christianity. None at all. None at all. But they will not take shots at the throne. Every time they even criticize Christians, they put like 9,200 qualifiers. Well, in the South, there are certain extremist right-wing GOP, radical, white, evangelical, Christian, nationalist, extremist right? and they might be a problem, right? They literally had to put so many fucking qualifiers on it to make sure they don't threaten that fucking that super majority Christian identity that everybody wants to buy into, even though it is fucking horseshit. And it is absolutely identity politics because they are placating to some fucking bullshit just so they can make people comfortable.
If you don't believe me, ask yourself why there are so few open atheists or even agnostics in national politics. This does not mean that politics is an equation solved by locating identity. Identity shapes our worldview, but it does not mechanistically decide it. And while we often speak of identity as a singular, it is always a dizzying plural. We have countless identities, some of them in active conflict with each other, others lying dormant until activated by threat or fortune. Much that happens in political campaigns is best understood as a struggle over which identities voters will inhabit come election day. Will they feel like workers exploited by their bosses, or heartlanders dismissed by coastal elites? Will they vote as patriotic traditionalists offended by NFL players who kneel during the national anthem, or as parents worried about the climate their children will inhabit?
And this is a really interesting point too, because it brings up a couple of things. One, it brings up how flexible our identities are and how really so much of electoral politics is not just appealing to different people with different identities, but rather to the different identities within a person, right? Because just some of these concerns, right? If you can get me to be more concerned about them transing my kids and border security and all of this fucking bullshit, then I might lean more to the right. If you get me to be more aware of the threat of climate change, more concerned about my kid really having a good understanding of history, and I don't know, maybe not voting against my own self-interest, I might lean more to the left. But as many of us know, right, because we've radically changed our thoughts and beliefs, and for many of us, our politics right along with it, right, we know that different parts of us can come out at different times. So I actually thought that was super cool.
What we are often fighting over in American politics is group identity and status. Fights that express themselves in debates over policy and power, but cannot be truly reconciled by either. Health policy is positive sum, but identity conflict is zero sum. The book Why We're Polarized by Ezra Klein.
Yeah. Probably an interesting read, right? And they're talking about mechanisms, right? So, you know, look, this is YouTube, gang. We try to add value to content by bringing in a different analysis, right? So there wasn't anything I found inaccurate or problematic about that conversation about the divisiveness or polarization. I assume if you read that book, there's probably a really good chance the author has a good read on things, but is looking at it mechanistically from a sociological perspective and talking about how it plays out. And it wasn't anything inaccurate there, but it is important for those of us that are living through this, and this isn't just intellectual exercise or light reading. The polarization is deeper than that. It's not. I don't like that. It's not about the polarization. Not about the divisiveness. It's about the fucking issues. And that ties into our next subject because it's about the fucking fascism. And we're dealing with people who can't be compromised with, and that's the part I don't know what to say about. Because if you talk about civil war, obviously you sound like an extremist nut job. And, you know, where I fall on even like the civil divorce side of things, right? That sounds really nuts. Like that's not gonna happen, right? I'm just making the point. I don't really care about these motherfuckers. If they want to dip, let them dip. But the reality is, because we all live together, because we won't be divided like that, these motherfuckers are just acceptable in the mainstream. And this conversation about divisiveness and polarization goes to further that. Because it goes to, you know, you show up and you're like, I'm for, you know, whatever we would lay out as our issues. And then somebody goes, oh, well, you know, well, that's your side of the story. And now let's hear from Johnny fucking Bigot over here. Two sides to every story. Like there's just so much of our national consciousness that needs to be radically altered before we are even having the same conversation. So yeah, but let's go ahead and talk about fascism, because I'm actually excited to get into this. Whoops. I don't, it's like, he's like in a musical thing right now. It's like musical interlude time. Really weird.
Fascists in Europe, and they were.
There we go.
Sure.
I'm fucking with it. All right, gang. I'm about to eat a gum. I'm about to eat a couple gummies. Light my bowl up.
This is the
Probably not a
Tom
good
Hartman
idea.
program.
So we throw around the word fascism a lot. By the way, welcome back to the
Do
second
we?
hour of the program.
Not enough for my liking.
We throw around the word fascism a lot, and I'm not sure most Americans have any kind of a genuine understanding of what that word actually means. And I can tell you for a fact that the War Department in 1943, our defense, what we call the Defense Department now, fully understood what fascism was, because they were.
All right, y'all. Y'all know me. I'm trying to be built in the mold of my den mother, the lovely Stephanie Helms, and you know, Stephanie will want to make sure, gang, that we are paying attention to the history. This man is taking us back to 1943. We are in 2023. The math, I'm not really good at math. Y'all know math. I do science. I do music. Math. No, I'm a drummer. I can count to 4. How many years is that? Is that like 80 years or something like that? Close enough. Here we go.
Fighting Hitler in Europe. They were fighting Mussolini in Europe. They were fighting Franco in Europe. They were fighting fascists in Europe, and in the Pacific, they were fighting fascist.
Fucking Joel. Everybody's been throwing around the term fascism lately instead of throwing around fascist. I fucking love it. I love it, Joel.
Japanese. And those movements in Japan, it had to do with emperor worship and racism. In Europe, it had to do with Führer worship and racism. But they had a whole lot of stuff in common. So, I said in 1943, they started these pamphlets in 43. But the one that Heather Cox Richardson pointed out in her brilliant Substack newsletter, it's Heather Cox Richardson.
Yeah, right. They're right back to the same thing. They're literally walking through the streets screaming, "Jews will not replace us." They're shutting down the LGBT, movement. Like and I don't mean just not just the social political, but they're just shutting down the research. Right? It's the same shit all over again. Right? It's gang. You know, I have one of those feels like guilty American pleasures of watching too many World War II documentaries on Netflix. Like, I don't know. Like, gang, this is I'm just saying this is why it's not good for certain people to be alone too much for too long, right? Because you could just go way down the rabbit hole and somebody could bring you back. Like, if you had some company, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I had a young lady over and we kicking it and chilling, and I'll be like, ooh, let's check out my Netflix, and that, like, Hitler documentary pops up, right? And you're like, ooh, that's not a good one. like, I ought to think twice about what I watch on Netflix, right? But when you single as shit and you don't really see other people ever, and you're like human beings, what are those? Girl, you just got some weird ass shit on your Netflix. But anyway, you know, you're like watching it, and you're watching it because it feels like a time capsule, right? You're trying to learn about history. You're trying to learn to take the issues more seriously. So you're looking back and everything's black and white, and you're like, God damn, these people were crazy. And then you wake up and you realize the shit is happening right now in HD in 2023. Like, it's affecting us, and it sucks. And then you realize you're living through it. Literally, I start watching World War II documentaries. Why do I need to watch World War II documentaries when I'm living in the fucking onset of either World War III or the next fucking Cold War? Either way, fucking COVID, fucking the war in Ukraine. I am living through such a historical time that fucking historical documentaries just don't fucking do it for me anymore. It's like my real life is too much of a historical documentary. So from now on, I'll just be watching bullshit on HBO. You know what I'm talking about? Like, shit's, gang, things are not okay. Can we just acknowledge that things are not okay right now?
Yesterday, or I guess it was this morning, it's dated yesterday, May 29th. Was published on March 24th, 1945. So this was the
Roy,
height
full Technicolor.
of World War II.
Full Technicolor Nazis. The
And
Nazis are in fucking ultra Nazis in 4K,
this
yo.
brochure. This was published by the American War Department, the U.S. Department of Defense, what we call today. You're away from home, separated from your families, no longer at a civilian job or at a school, and many of you are risking your very lives. Keep in mind, this went out to the soldiers because of a thing called fascism. But what is fascism? Fascism is not the easiest thing to analyze or identify, nor, once in power, is it easy to destroy. It's important for our future and that of the world that as many of us as possible understand the causes and practices of fascism in order to combat it.
Pause the tape. This is very important. We are going to, everybody, perk up. We're about to get into defining fascism, and it is incredibly important that we get on the same page about that. But before we do that, let's acknowledge what is going on in this message he is reading. It is the U.S. government telling its fucking soldiers out there in the field, you're dying for this shit called fascism. You need to make sure you understand exactly what it is while you're over there fighting against it. Gang, we need to bring this back. This is what should be happening right now. And I gotta say, weak move, Biden. Let's go, Brandon. You know what I mean? But look, seriously, Dark Brandon needs to be doing this. Dark Brandon is trying to get for us to vote for his ass all over again next year. Every fucking day in every fucking state, he should be on the goddamn stump talking about how the GOP is fascist, and he should be doing just like this. He should be defining what fascism is, pointing out how their policies are exactly examples of that, and then he should be naming and shaming them up and down the ballot. He should be like, what up, Iowa? All right, Iowa. So in the 92nd district, running from dog catcher, is this fascist named Billy Adams. Nobody should vote for the fascist named Billy Adams who is running for dog catcher. All right, District 145, I see you. All right, this McGully contractors. Yeah, McGully contractors. No, they don't get to do no trim treeing because they're fascist. Yeah, they're fascist. So you don't let these fascists, you don't want fascists taking government money to trim your trees. Yeah. That gang, I am so. He should be naming fucking names. He should be preaching. I should be up in here like a fucking atheist, like sweating and shit. Joe Biden, you about to make me a Catholic. Woo! Joe Biden get to talking about that fascism. Woo! Joe Biden get to naming names. Woo! Joe Biden get to throwing these motherfucking fascists under the bus. Oh, Joe Biden, you get me so excited. Come on, Dark Brandon, this is a missed opportunity. I am talking about the President of the United States informing the troops and the people exactly about fascism and who the fucking fascists are. Come on, baby, this is politics. Stop playing around.
Fascism is government by the few and for the few. The objective is...
Can y'all hear that? Really? Government by the few and for the few, and if it's me and you, y'all already know what it do, because the few don't include us.
Seizure and control of the economic and cultural life of the state. I thought that, end of quote from the federal government. Cultural life, fascism? Yes. Let me continue. I'm reading from a War Department memo, March 24th, 1945. The basic principles of democracy stand in the way of their desires. Hence, democracy must go. Anyone who is not a member of their inner gang has to do what he's told. They permit no civil liberties, no equality before the law. Children, kitchen, and the church was the Nazi slogan for women. Heather Cox Richardson adds, they permit no civil liberties, no equality. Oh no, this is actually from it. Fascism treats women as mere breeders. Children, kitchen, and the church was the Nazi slogan for women. Fascists make their own rules. Again,
Gang, look, everybody perform this test. Literally take some of those lines, right? And what I want you to do, for instance, just take like, children, the kitchen, and the church. That's a good one. Children, the kitchen, and the church, right? And then what you do, right, is you state to people that this is, you go to all the right-leaning voters, like you do it like one of them fucked up CNN town hall type of setups, right? We're gonna find all the people who anticipate voting Republican in the upcoming presidential election, all right? And then we're gonna be like, all right, so you intend to vote Republican in the next, all right, cool, check, cool. You're gonna vote for all these Republican assholes? Check, all right, cool. Now, did you know that the official platform of the 2024 Republican Party is that women belong in the kitchen with children in the church? Children, kitchen, church. Children, kitchen, church. Yes, that's okay. Now that you hear that they believe the official is children, kitchen, church, women, are you still intending to vote for this Republican Party? Oh, you are. Literally, y'all, perform a blind test. Just fucking pretend that, and then be like, you stupid motherfucker. That's not even the shit they said. That is literally some fascist shit from 80 fucking years ago, and your stupid ass was about to sign off on it. But it will prove both these fucking points. It will prove, number one, the shit that they are doing right now is the same shit, and they would not even recognize the difference. They would believe you. They would not be like, that's clearly some fascist shit for 80 years ago. The current GOP would never believe that. None of them will doubt you. Not a single one of them will doubt you. They'll be like, yeah, I bet you they did say that shit, right? And then point number two, they're good with it. They're fucking good with it. They are fucking good with it. It's religion to these fools. There is nothing they can say that would make them not vote Republican. So it really doesn't matter. So you would understand, literally, they are the same. They're the same. They're just today's fascists. And you would point out number two, your neighbors are really, really, really shitty people because they're fucking good with it.
I'm reading from the War Department. Fascists make their own rules and change them when they choose. They maintain themselves in power by use of force combined with propaganda based on primitive ideas of blood and race,
self-hatred,
by skillful manipulation of fear and hate, and by false promise of security. The propaganda glorifies war and insists it is smart and realistic to be pitiless and violent. Fascists understand that the fundamental principle of democracy, faith in the common sense of the common people, was the direct opposite of the fascist principle of rule by the elite few. So they fought democracy. They played political, religious, social, and economic groups against each other and seized power while these groups struggled. They go on to point out.
Now, gang, this is exactly what we have, and I try to drive this point home. It's just the truth. Y'all know me. I'm a bad guy. I'm not trying to be harmonious. I'm trying to kick people in the face. Sweet chin music. Trying to hit them over the head with the steel chair. I don't really have time for all of this peaceful garbage. But look, the truth is, our struggles go hand in hand. If you look at the struggles of the urban poor, the urban working class, to the lower middle class, the people that are grinding paycheck to paycheck in our big cities, and they disproportionately tend to be colored, and they're city folks, and and they listen to different music. I don't give a shit. Go ahead, compare their day in and day out with the motherfucking rural folks out there in the sticks who are not part of the gentry landed class. You know, the motherfuckers who you walking through this place and it's like a fucking huge ass farm, big ass acres, and then you walk through another one, there's a huge ass. Not them! Those are the fucking privileged fucking elite who own shit. I'm talking about the regular ass motherfucker who are most of the working poor in the rural areas. And you know what you're gonna find? Their issues and their struggles are the same. Work is not abundant enough. It doesn't pay well enough. Benefits are not good enough. They are one mishap, one misstep, one big ticket item, one unexpected move or some shit like that away from complete financial devastation. They have nothing to leave their children. They're worried about their kids going to better schools so that they could get a better education than the one they had. Y'all, it is the same goddamn story because we're all the same species. We have the same goddamn needs. If you talk to somebody like me called a motherfucking biologist, we will tell you that shit is obvious. People need what people need. But that is exactly what the fascists do, is they convince us to turn on each other and eat each other up, have war with each other while they're just sitting back at the top ruining in everything while they run the whole goddamn show. And the truth is, this is what the GOP is doing, and it works. It works because they double down on focusing on the identity, right? They focus on the way in which their rural voters that they're looking to go after look different and, have different, ethnics and different beliefs and all of this type of bullshit, right? Fight the fucking culture war. That way they can not ever talk about the fact that, like, they're ruining all of our lives, right? Because they're opposing the progressive economic policies that will be helping everybody. So if they could just make sure their people don't notice that they're like not doing their jobs like at all, then they can just focus on, and the identity politics actually works for them because one, most of the groups that they deal with, like ostracizing, they don't think they're dependent on. So they're just trying to keep out of their bag, so to speak, right? Like, they don't give a fuck about black people, and they think, hey, look, we really need the rural vote and like the, you know, white Christian American vote. So like, we just need to like keep black voters out of our districts and like suppress black districts. Like, what seems to be wrong? Pretty obvious strategy to me, right? And then it's so important. Like, Stephanie's always trying to tell us how what the percentages. Make sure we keep track of the numbers with our trans fam, and I'm always, it always baffles my mind because it shows you they don't have the numbers to defend themselves. But trust me, y'all, the conservatives did the math on that shit. They're like, what? We can mobilize the whole country about suppressing 0.005% of the population? Yeah, sign us up, right? That's how they look at that shit. And I've actually been singing a different tune about LGBTQ ever since. I realized that they're ironic. They're unfortunately like the perfect target. The perfect target. You can make a boogeyman out of literally a demographic that's just too small to stand up to you. So yeah, that's what the rest of us have to do now. Anyway, let's get back to this.
We should not be fooled into thinking that we're safe from fascism here in the United States. Again, from the War Department brochure. We once laughed Hitler off as a harmless little clown with a funny mustache. And indeed, the U.S. has experienced sorry instances of mob sadism, lynchings, vigilantism, terror, and suppression of civil liberties. We have our hooded gangs, black legions, silver shirts,
I forgot I can do that now.
and religious bigots. All of them, in the name of Americanism, have used undemocratic methods and doctrines which can be properly identified as fascist, writes the U.S. War Department in 1945. They will try to gain power under the guise of super patriotism and super Americanism. Interesting. Fascists would seize power in America by claiming that they wanted to make America great again. It goes on to say that first they would pit groups against each other. It's part of a, quote, well-planned hate campaign against minority races, religions, and other groups. Second, they'd say, we don't need to involve ourselves with the rest of the world. Quote, in place of international cooperation, the fascists seek to substitute a perverted sort of ultranationalism, which tells their people that they are the only people in the world who count. With this goes hatred and suspicion toward the people of all other nations. And then third, fascists insist, quote, the world has but two choices, either fascism or communism, and they label as communists everyone who refuses to support them. Again, this was written by the War Department in 1945, and it's like they're describing today's Republican Party.
Again, y'all, it literally, you could just do the blind test, and the Republicans today will tell you they can't recognize the difference themselves because there isn't one. It is the same playbook. It's only intensified. And I know a lot of times the narrative becomes, well, a lot of this is pushed back because we've made so much progress and it's happened too fast for them. And so they'll push back, but ultimately they're on the wrong side of history, so we don't need to worry. It's optimistic. I'd like that to be the case. But I don't know how you account for exactly how bad the blowback gets. I don't know that it's wise to assume that the blowback doesn't continue to gain momentum until it establishes a new normal. I don't know. Makes me reminds me why I don't gamble. But I think, you know, like these people are are deathly serious. And I think if you look at what's happening, the trans erasure, the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the outright crazy racism we see now in terms of erasing Black history, ignoring and continue to excuse police violence that the whole world has seen, and literally like openly passing laws to restrict our ability to, like, you know, elect our own officials in Black communities. I mean, it just the list could go on and on, but my point is, this doesn't feel like getting better for marginalized groups. So that whole, oh, this is just part of us winning, like, who does that narrative really benefit? Certainly doesn't do shit for me, right? Especially not if when, you know, when you go back, right, and like Stephanie talks about this so wonderfully, like we're losing rights we already had. They're taking us back in time. So most of my life growing up, racism was a bitch to deal with. I dealt with it literally every day. But you know what? It was pretty okay to teach Black history. Like that I didn't have to worry about. Like I didn't have to worry about, like, you know, I wasn't having to worry about us not being able to read books with Black characters in it, like the crazy shit. Right? Like I wasn't as worried. I think gerrymandering's gotten worse throughout my lifetime and shit like this. So it's like, who does it serve to say things are getting better when people can tell you based on their lived experience things are getting worse? They're getting worse.
It's vitally important to learn how to spot fascists, the government wrote. Quote, even though they adopt names and slogans with popular appeal, they drape themselves with the American flag. They attempt to carry out their program in the name of democracy, democracy that they are trying to destroy. So how do we fight fascism in the United States? Well, the War Department says the only way is by making our democracy work.
It'll never happen.
And by actively cooperating to preserve world peace and security. We must, they say, defy fascism. They say that by dividing people, it weakens democracy. By getting men to hate rather than think, it prevents them from seeking the real cause and the democratic solution to the problem. Amazing. Our government needs to be talking about fascism again. I mean, not just going after the fascists like the Department of Justice is doing, going after the January 6 people. I mean, this is just the smallest tip of the iceberg. And we need to be going after the leadership as well. Meanwhile, in Texas, speaking of fascists, in Texas, Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo, who's been a guest on this program multiple times, she's the most senior elected official in that county, kind of the equivalent of a county commissioner or county executive. She is protesting two pieces of legislation that passed over the weekend in Texas at the end of the Texas legislative session. Their legislature just retired for the next 2 years without passing a single gun control piece of legislation. But instead what they did is they passed two laws that only apply to counties in Texas with over 3.5 million people. There is only one county in Texas with over 3.5 million people. It's Harris County, which is where Houston is, and it's the largest Democratic county in the state. And these two pieces of legislation give the Secretary of State, a Republican, the authority to take control of the elections away from the county officials and run the elections the way that the Secretary of State sees fit, and even throw out the results of elections that they don't like, claiming, oh, well, one of the polling places opened 10 minutes too late. the little kind of technical violations that can happen in Harris County that just routinely happen, you know, running out of paper, running out of ballots, opening too late, not having a power cord so half your machine, you know, so some of your machines aren't working for the first half hour. Those kinds of problems, which just normally happen all over the country in polling places, those would trigger the ability of the Republican fascist Abbott regime to take over the elections via Senate Bill 1933 and Senate Bill 1750.
Now this is the bullshit too. This is like this is what I kind of think of as a Pine Creek. Like this is such a Pine Creek thing to do. To be willing to use racism for whatever fucked up ass means you have is racist and is super fucked up. And, you know, it's kind of like the people who say, you know, like they'll say racist shit to you when they're mad at you. They're like, oh, I'm not a racist. I just want to piss you off. Like, I just want to trigger you. So since I don't like you, I'm gonna use some racist shit. But that's all right. But it's because I don't like you. Okay, let's be clear. God damn, I'm not a fucking bigot. I don't like you. You're fucking black ass. All right. This is that. Who lives in Houston, y'all? Obviously, that's where the peoples are. And you attack the legislative capacity, the voting capacity of black districts to govern their own lives, and everybody can overlook the fact that there's clearly like racially problematic things happening with this legislation because it's permitted in sort of the policy Overton window because you're just trying to own the libs. You're just trying to own the libs. All right. So a little self-governance is taken from disproportionately communities of color in one of the most fucked up ass racist states of all time. But look, the real intent here, okay, speaker, whoever the fuck, okay, the real intent is to own the libs. Okay, so if we're owning the libs, I mean, you can't blame us, all right? So this is the realities of today, y'all. It is this slow yet rapid descent into fascism that ironically is being accelerated by the normalization of fascist bigots and all types of other fuckfaces, because everyone is, or not everyone, but too many people are sitting around crying about divisiveness and polarization. It really reminds me of, I'm gonna butcher the names, but there was like a fuckface right winger who used to like be part of I don't know, that fucked up ass church. What's the fucked up ass church called? Y'all know the super. Why can't I think of the name of the super fucked up ass church right now? But anyway, like she just became a grifter who basically says, "Oh, I left the fucking super bigoted church because people were nice to me and they sat down and they had calm conversations with me." And Westboro, yeah. She's the daughter of the Westboro dude. But you know, she's been exposed lately. Why? Because she's really just a grifter who uses this whole politics of civility dialogue to turn a buck and basically provide comfort to fucking bigots and assholes and other fascists. So that's bullshit, y'all. That's a false narrative. It's just more politics of civility bullshit. No, you don't have to. Listen, these people are assholes. that petting them nicely on the head, talking to them in hushed sweet tones, making sure you use their government name, that's not gonna get shit done. They are determined to make sure it doesn't. Like, I don't know how to say this kindly, but you just have to be willing to be rude. You just have to be willing to kick a little ass from time to time, because our enemies, and they are our enemies, they win on easy mode if all they have to do is show up and have the conversation. What? Oh, what? All you really want them to do is show up, sit down, and politely tell you how they really feel? Oh, yeah. Oh, they're here for that. They're here for that. What? And then you're gonna be like, well, isn't that great? We've sat down and heard each other and hashed this out, and now we can both go away and reflect on this, and I'm sure we'll wake up in the morning renewed people. All right, that's our time. See you later. Like, come on, that shit doesn't work. That's not real. So we got to just stop buying into that. All right, I've heard enough of my self-talk for the night. I am going to go link up with the gang and gather. We'll watch some HBO Max. You know, I got to figure out a better tie-in for the Max and Relax, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to go Max and Relax. Appreciate y'all. This was fun. Like I said, I'm moving, so life is awful and crazy. Moving sucks, and then it blows, and then you wake up in the morning and it starts sucking all over again. None of that in the good way, though. So, but yeah, we're gonna get this thing knocked out, get the studio set up, and we'll be back at it. But this was fun. Thanks so much for tuning in. Good to see everybody. I'm over here looking to press buttons to end the show. I can't do that because No, don't have any of that stuff. But yeah, this was super fun. We'll see you later. Thanks for tuning in. Come link up with us and gather. See you next time.
You have lost your mind. Homosexuality should be a crime. They ought to take all the homosexuals and put them all on a boat and give them enough gas to get halfway out in the middle of the ocean and let the sharks eat them. So there's no way to stop me. There's no way to stop the truth. This isn't preaching. This is hate speech. It's both. Because we can purge out all the sissies and purge out all the fair weather Christians, purge out all the weaklings. Because we're supposed to be treating them lovingly and respectfully. Even though the Bible says they're filthy and vile. I mean, I know some of you guys are enjoying it. So don't act like I'm all alone up here. Some of you thumbed up some of those comments too, didn't you? No, I'm just saying, look.